Francisco Pizarro was born in Trujillo, Spain, it is believed in 1471, although an exact date of his birth is not known. Francisco's father was Gonzalo Pizarro, a colonel in the infantry. He served in the Italian campaigns under Córdoba and also at Navarre. He was born the illegitimate son to a woman of little means, Francisca González. On his paternal side he would be related to Hernan Cortes. Francisco would have one daughter, and 3 sons of his own. One son was born to an unknown woman and died in 1544. Another son and his daughter were born by Inzuelas Yupanqui, Gonzalo and Francisca, both of whom were legitimized in 1537. His third son, Francisco, died shortly after his arrival in Spain. As far as education was concerned, Francisco Pizarro was not fortunate enough to have received one. Being an illegitimate child in most cases, meant the fathers either didn't know of their existence, or didn't care to, and so their educational needs were not a priority. Francisco would receive his education by living life, and traveling. Francisco Pizarro would ultimately have quite a long and prosperous career, taking him many miles from his homeland of Spain. He left home in 1509, to join the crew of Alonso de Ojeda, who set sail for the New World. Sailing to Cartagena, they joined the fleet of Martin Fernández de Enciso, in 1513. Although he had once accompanied Vasco Núñez de Balboa, he was also given the responsibility some 5 years later to arrest him. Balboa stood trial and was executed. For his part, Pizarro was appointed mayor and magistrate of newly founded Panama City. Francisco Pizarro would head up 3 expeditions to Peru. After the first expedition some persuading was taken to gain permission to make the second, but when it came to the third, local permission by the governor of Panama, Pedro de los Rios, was refused. Pizarro decided a more direct approach was needed, and headed to Spain to make his request direct to the king, which would be granted. Pizarro was joined by other members of his family, primarily brothers, Hernando, Juan and Gonzalo, decided to accompany him, and a cousin Pedro, also joined the men. This was to be his finest accomplishment and the expedition that would see his name in the history books. Having attacked the Incan army in the battle that would become known as the Battle of Cajamarca, Atahualpa was captured. Pizarro needed the sovereign emperor dispatched, but without causing an uproar with the local people he was trying to subdue. Citing the death of his own brother and plotting against Pizarro, Pizarro found him guilty and he was executed. Many objections were raised. Pizarro's brother Hernando, under Soto, even the King of Spain sent word expressing his displeasure at the death of the Incan monarch. In 1553 Cuzco was captured and Francisco Pizarro considered this his ultimate achievement. Almagro put down the final effort by the Incas to recapture Cuzco, but in a personal dispute between the Pizarros and Almagro, a battle ensued that would see Almagro on the losing side, and thus executed. After the death of his father, Diego Almagro II, was stripped of his lands and left bankrupt. With the rage of his father's death, and subsequent loss of his lands and money, El Mozo, as he would be known, together with 20 of his most trusted men, stormed the palace that Pizarro and his family lived in. As old as Francisco Pizarro was, and it is thought he was in his 60s possibly 70, he held his ground, but nevertheless this would be his last battle, as he and his half-brother, Alcantara, were cut down on June 26, 1541. Francisco Pizarro's remains would be laid to rest in the Lima Cathedral, his head and body separated. As for Almagro, he would be caught and executed the following year, in 1542.